You know, I don't like doing segments like this where instead of just talking about a news story, I have to not even go through and debunk like the crazy claims of Breitbart or InfoWars or something like that. But I have to sit here and talk about corporate Democrats. Because they're not as interesting of a topic, I'll admit right now. But they are, unfortunately, far more important if we want to actively fight against Donald Trump, if we want to actively take the House back in 2018. And I don't know if we'd even be able to take the Senate back mathematically. Most seats that are up are Democratic seats. The New York Times, which has for years been the beacon of maybe not full-on liberal journalism, but at least decently left-wing journalism, recently wrote a piece called Why Democrats Need Wall Street. Oh my god. I'm just gonna read a few excerpts. Okay, this is the first sentence. You ready? Many of the most prominent voices in the Democratic Party, led by Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is not a registered Democrat, by the way. He's a registered independent. But that's an extremely small nitpick. Are advocating for wealth redistribution through higher taxes and Medicare for all, and demonizing banks and Wall Street. Okay, first off, that's not how a sentence is supposed to grammatically work. It should be higher taxes, comma, Medicare for all, comma, and demonizing banks and Wall Street. And even then, it should probably be demonizing banks, comma, and Wall Street, but you know, that's a little nitpick. But that sounds like a sentence I'd expect Sean Hannity to say. Just, oh, liberals are demonizing big banks and supporting higher taxes and wealth redistribution, and it's just like the Soviet Union, help me! I... that was a weird Sean Hannity impression. Just, why? Let's go through these. Wealth redistribution through higher taxes, be more specific, Medicare for all, yes, and demonizing banks and Wall Street because they crashed our economy. That's the thing. The Wall Street banks crashed the economy in 2008. They caused the housing market collapse. They caused the economic crash of '08. Well, it was a combination of Wall Street banks and their friendliness with Bush, but who corporate Dems are currently supporting because he said something bad about Trump, guys. But I'll get to that in a later segment. So yeah, let's demonize him. And keep in mind, we're only at the beginning of this. I'm going to leave out most of the article, because if I were to go through the whole thing, that'd be about an hour. We'll just go through this. I was gonna say we'll just cut through until they make another really stupid point. It took me one paragraph to find. Memories in politics are short, but those policies are vastly different from the programs of the party's traditional center-left coalition. Um, We weren't really all that centrist, though, until Clinton came along. It's not traditional. FDR won 4 terms. Just saying. Under Bill Clinton, the coalition balanced the budget. That was mainly due to a tech boom going on at the time, but okay. Acknowledged the limits of government. Okay, and protected the essential programs that make up the social safety net. Clinton gutted welfare. He gutted welfare. That's just an objective fact. So that is factually just incorrect. President Clinton did this in part by moving the party away from its reflexive anti-Wall Street posture. It's not popular to say today, but there are still compelling reasons Democrats should strengthen ties to Wall Street. It's not popular to say because it's wrong. And then this is my favorite part so far. As the party has left behind that version of liberalism, we didn't leave it behind. We continued that, and lost twice to George Bush. Once under Al Gore, and once under John Kerry. Under those two nominees, we lost. Granted, Gore, the Electoral College screwed us over. Gore did get more votes than Bush. And Kerry, there was some suspicion going on in a couple states. And even then, that was partly due to the war on terror at the time, which really beefed up Bush in some areas, and etc., etc. However, still, we could have beaten him twice. We still lost using those positions 2 times. That's what's important. And, we lost against a man who had one of the main peoples on his cabinet say, we know where weapons are. They're in, somewhere, Baghdad, west, east, south, north. That was an actual Rumsfeld quote. And they could have just played that like 50 times over and said, this is an incompetent buffoons running the White House. And more than likely have won. And granted, again, Kerry only did lose by an extremely small margin, but he still lost. That's the point. Okay, let's continue on. It has also found its way to its weakest electoral position nationally and at the state level since the 1920s. 2010, Barack Obama was president. He had just passed the individual mandate, which was thought up by Nixon and supported by Bob Dole and Mitt Romney and Gingrich and the Heritage Foundation, and lost the entire House of Representatives. Well, not the entire, he lost the House of Representatives. 2014, those continued and continued and spiraled, we lost the Senate. 2016, Hillary Clinton acted like a neoliberal, we lost the presidency, and had the possibility to get the Supreme Court back for the first time in decades. Democrats lost over 1,000 seats under Obama, and that's the person they're supporting. Hillary Clinton's lurch to the left probably cost her key Midwest states that Barack Obama had won twice and led to the election of Donald Trump. That's not at all what happened. Hillary Clinton was going out there saying things like, America's already great, which is like something she stole from Reagan. It was essentially something that Ronald Reagan would say. She was going up there on the debate stage. You saw me do videos on the debate. You saw me do segments on that. She was just giving out empty platitudes. And when you compare her to Donald Trump, that's why a lot of people went for Donald Trump. And by the way, her vice president, Tim Kaine, was the head of the DNC in 2010. The year we lost the House of Representatives. Oh my god. We're not even a full halfway through the article, so I'm just going to... essentially, I could continue going through... I just want to address 2 more real quick. I figured I'd take a minute. Because you know what article it's going to be. The full thing's in the description if you want to read it. For the 2020 election, some of the party's strongest potential presidential candidates, Senator Cory Booker, who has almost no chance in 2020, Kirsten Gillibrand, maybe, Kamala Harris, I see her having the Hillary Clinton effect. Maybe people will be sick of Trump by then and just vote for her anyway, but I don't see her winning by all that wide of a margin. Like, if Kamala Harris does win in 2020, and she's the nominee and she wins, and I hope she's not the nominee, by the way, odds are it would be like a 279 victory. Okay? As well as David Patrick, the former Massachusetts governor, should not be dismissed simply because of their current or past ties to Wall Street. Meanwhile, less than a decade ago, Wall Street crashed the economy. They basically then attempt to argue that America is a center-right country, which is denied by any poll on the issues. Don't get me wrong, there are tons of people who identify as center-right. However, if you actually find them on the positions, and don't get me wrong, there are some people who are genuinely conservative, but a lot of them, if you ask them on positions, what do you think of Medicare for all? What do you think of a living wage? What do you think of a tuition-free college? They support that. But anyway, I just want to end it with this. This is the second to last paragraph. This one, I found this article through Secular Talk. When I saw this, my jaw just dropped. This is when they're talking about neoliberal establishment candidates working. This was evident to Democrats in the 1990s. You mean the decade we couldn't defeat George Bush? Or, sorry, we picked a candidate that couldn't defeat George Bush. My bad. Okay, I know Bush was in 2000s, but a lot of that was building up from the 90s. Gore was Clinton's vice president, after all. I'm just saying, you can't just blame that all on one thing. And from 1996 to 2000, for example, Democrats led the way to two economic legislative victories. First, the Telecommunication Act of 1996 deregulated the communication and cable industry, increased growth, and enhanced market competition. What did that do? That made it so only 5 people own all the news now. And they're all buddies with each other. That's why we can't have really independent thought. And these people wonder why people start getting their news from YouTube. People wonder why Young Turks and Secular Talk are beating CNN shows in the key demographic. Second, the Financial Service Modernization Act of 1999 removed regulations placed on the financial institution by bureaucratic and expansive opportunities, or by bureaucrats and expanded opportunities for Wall Street to engage in mergers and acquisitions, adding wealth to the retirement accounts of other individual portfolios for millions of middle-class Americans. So basically, the wealth trickled down is what you're telling me. What you're telling me is it allowed trickle-down economics to happen. Let's talk about what that act actually did. That act repealed, or at least heavily weakened, Glass-Steagall. That Glass-Steagall created a separation between commercial and investment banking, meaning if banks were to invest your money, it had to be in small, safe amounts, and there had to be a return guaranteed. This was because one of the things that led to the Great Depression were banks just investing on everything, including these really weird things, etc. Clinton got rid of that. And for that matter, I could be wrong with this, I believe the first person who tried to do that was George H.W. Bush. He failed. Luckily, Clinton was there to pick up the job. And NAFTA was a failed Reagan act. But let's see who wrote this. The person who wrote this was a man named Douglas Schoen. And he was this is just according to New York Times, was a pollster and senior political advisor to President Bill Clinton from 1994 to 2000. Wow. I'm not even going to talk about that one. So you worked for Bill Clinton, and you're sitting there telling us how great the party was under Bill Clinton. Just, oh God. New York Times. Stop.